Have you ever wondered what happens when you become too powerful? When every fight ends in one punch, every challenge dissolves before it begins, and the thrill of battle becomes nothing but a distant memory? This isn't just Saitama's story. It's the tale of Lord Boros, the being who traveled across the universe only to find that absolute power comes with absolute emptiness. The day Boros' ship appeared over City A, crushing the city's tallest tower like a toy, fans expected another Monster of the Week scenario. What we got instead was One Punch Man's most compelling exploration of power and purpose. Here was a being who could regenerate from almost any injury, move at speeds that melted his own body, and survive multiple hits from the man known for ending fights with a single punch. Yet, his most remarkable feature wasn't his strength, it was his loneliness. Think about what it means to be undefeated for over 150 years. Not just winning fights, but dominating them so completely that victory becomes meaningless. Boros didn't just conquer worlds. He searched them, desperately hoping to find someone, anyone, who could make him feel alive again. When a prophecy spoke of a worthy opponent on Earth, he spent 20 years crossing the cosmos just for the chance at a real fight. That's longer than most of us spend pursuing our dreams. Yet for him, it was merely a fraction of his endless search for meaning. The moment Boros survived Saitama's first punch, everything changed. Not just for him, but for our understanding of what power means in this universe. Here was someone who didn't just tank the hit. He stood up, excited, almost grateful. Watch his eye in that scene. It's not filled with fear or anger, but with something closer to hope. For the first time in over a century, the dominator of the universe felt the one thing that had eluded him: uncertainty. This is where Boros transcends typical villain territory. His invasion of Earth wasn't driven by malice or conquest. These were just symptoms of a deeper, more relatable struggle. When he tells Saitama about his journey through the cosmos, destroying countless worlds, there's no pride in his voice. Instead, we hear the weariness of someone who's been playing a game on the easiest difficulty setting for so long that they've forgotten what challenge feels like. The real kicker about Boros' power isn't just in its scale, it's in how it shaped his entire existence. His armor, that metallic shell that made him look like a final boss in a video game, wasn't for protection at all. Imagine being so overwhelmingly strong that you have to wear power-limiting armor just to feel something during a fight. It's like a master chef deliberately dulling their taste buds just to enjoy a simple meal again. But here's where it gets really interesting. Boros' power came with a fascinating set of abilities that reflected his internal struggle. His regeneration wasn't just some convenient superpower. It was the ultimate metaphor for his curse. No matter how much damage he took, he would always recover, always return to that state of untouchable strength. Even when his body was literally blown to pieces, he'd pull himself back together, forced to continue his existence as the strongest being in the cosmos. Then, there's his meteoric burst form, arguably one of the most metal power-ups in anime history. By releasing his sealed power, Boros could move so fast that his own body began to disintegrate. Think about that for a second. He was literally destroying himself just to feel the rush of a real fight. It's like cranking up your car's engine until it starts breaking down. Except the car is your body, and the engine is your life force. The way Boros carries himself throughout the invasion tells us even more about his character. Despite commanding an army of aliens and possessing enough power to wipe out humanity, he maintains a strange sense of honor. He doesn't gloat or monologue like your typical villain. Instead, he speaks with the measured tone of someone who's seen too much, done too much, and is desperately hoping this time will be different. When he finally meets Saitama, there's an almost diplomatic quality to their initial exchange. No immediate attacks, no grandiose threats. Just two absurdly powerful beings sizing each other up. It's like watching two apex predators meeting for the first time, except both of them are secretly hoping the other might actually pose a challenge. The prophecy that brought Boros to Earth wasn't just some convenient plot device, it was his last grasp at finding meaning. After 150 years of uncontested victory, wouldn't you also cross galaxies based on the slimmest hope of finding an equal? His power had turned the entire universe into a playground where he couldn't find a single worthy playmate. Every world he visited, every battle he fought, was just another reminder of his isolation at the top. Speaking of that prophecy, let's talk about what it really means to chase a dream across the stars. Boros didn't just hop on a space Uber and zip over to Earth. He spent 20 years traveling through the cosmos. That's 2 decades of anticipation, of hope, building with every light year crossed. For most beings, 20 years is a significant chunk of life. For Boros, it was just another chapter in his endless search, but this time with something he hadn't felt in ages: purpose. The dark matter thieves, Boros' crew, weren't just some random space pirates. They were an elite force that followed him across the universe, and the way they operated tells us volumes about their leader. Notice how his ship didn't immediately start blasting everything in sight when it arrived? There was a method to their invasion, a strange sort of protocol. Even as the self-proclaimed dominator of the universe, Boros maintained a code of conduct that spoke of someone who remembered what it meant to fight with honor. You can see it in how he carries himself during the invasion. Despite his overwhelming power, there's no mindless destruction, no casual obliteration of cities just because he can. Every action has a purpose, even if that purpose is simply trying to feel something again. It's like watching someone who's mastered every video game trying to find fun in a tutorial level. They're going through the motions, hoping something, anything, will spark that old feeling of excitement. The really fascinating part about Boros' journey isn't just the physical distance he covered, but the psychological weight he carried. Imagine living so long that you've forgotten what it feels like to worry about losing. Imagine being so powerful that you have to consciously hold back in every interaction, like trying to play chess with pieces that could destroy the board. The loneliness of that existence isn't just about not having equals. It's about losing touch with the very experiences that make life thrilling. When Boros talks about his past battles, there's a detachment in his voice that's almost clinical. He doesn't brag about his victories or revel in his conquests. Instead, he describes them like someone flipping through an old photo album, remembering events that have lost their emotional impact. Each world he visited, each opponent he faced, became just another tick mark in an endless tally of hollow victories. But here's the thing about Boros that most people miss. His journey wasn't really about finding a strong opponent. That's just what he told himself. What he was really searching for was a connection, a moment of genuine struggle, something to make him feel alive again. In a weird way, his entire invasion of Earth was less about conquest and more about trying to cure the ultimate case of cosmic depression. This is where things get really wild. The moment when Boros and Saitama finally face each other. It's like looking at 2 sides of the same coin, except the coin is made of pure existential crisis. Both of them reached the peak of power, but they dealt with their strength in completely opposite ways. Saitama became a hero for fun, trying to find meaning in protecting others, while Boros traveled the cosmos, turning his search for a worthy opponent into a galactic road trip of destruction. When these 2 powerhouses meet, it's not just a battle, it's a conversation through combat. Every exchange tells a story. Watch how Boros lights up when Saitama tanks his hits. It's the look of someone who's finally found what they've been missing, like a chef who's discovered a new flavor after years of eating the same meal. Meanwhile, Saitama's reactions are perfectly on brand. He's just there, being his usual deadpan self, accidentally living out someone else's prophecy. The fight itself is a masterclass in showing rather than telling. As Boros keeps pushing himself harder, unleashing more power, his appearance becomes more human-like. It's no accident. His final form isn't some grotesque monster, but something almost beautiful, as if he's shedding the alien exterior to reveal the vulnerable being underneath. Each transformation isn't just a power-up. It's Boros stripping away layers of isolation that he built up over centuries. Their battle escalates to ridiculous levels, with Boros literally kicking Saitama to the moon. But here's the brilliant part. Even in this extreme moment, there's a weird sense of joy in Boros' actions. He's not fighting to kill anymore. He's fighting because, for the first time in over a century, he's experiencing the pure rush of combat without knowing the outcome. It's like watching someone rediscover their favorite childhood game, except the game involves potentially destroying the planet. The way Boros and Saitama mirror each other goes beyond their strength. Both suffer from the same condition, the inability to find challenge in a world too weak for them. But while Saitama copes by searching for sales at the supermarket and playing video games with King, Boros took the path of becoming the ultimate galactic wanderer. Same problem, wildly different solutions. It's like two people dealing with boredom. One picks up gardening, the other decides to become a cosmic conqueror. What makes this parallel even more fascinating is how they react to finally meeting someone who can take their punches. Saitama remains largely unchanged, still looking for a good fight, while Boros experiences a complete character arc in the span of one battle. He goes from resigned acceptance of his power to genuine excitement, then to a kind of peaceful understanding, as he realizes that even this, his prophesied great battle, isn't quite what he hoped for. But maybe that's okay. The end of Boros' story hits different when you understand everything leading up to it. His final moments aren't just the conclusion of a fight, they're the culmination of a 150-year journey. After unleashing his trump card, the collapsing star roaring cannon, an attack powerful enough to wipe out a planet's surface, Boros faces something he's never experienced before: defeat. But here's the kicker: he's not mad about it. In fact, he seems almost satisfied. You'd think someone who traveled across the universe for a good fight would be bitter about losing. But Boros' reaction tells us everything about who he really was. As he lies there, literally falling apart, he calls out Saitama's bluff about it being a tough fight. "You lie. You had strength to spare. I never stood a chance." There's no anger in his voice, no rage at the prophecy that led him here. Instead, there's this weird mix of acceptance and appreciation, like someone who finally gets the punchline to a cosmic joke. The real gut punch comes from realizing that Boros achieved his goal, just not in the way he expected. He wanted a fight that would make him feel alive again, and he got it, even if it meant dying in the process. It's like spending your whole life climbing mountains, only to find peace in the valley. His last moments weren't marked by the thrill of an equal battle, but by the novel experience of being completely and utterly outclassed. This is where Boros' legacy in One Punch Man really shines. He wasn't just the first opponent to survive multiple punches from Saitama. He was the first to make us question what victory and defeat really mean in this universe. Through him, we see that sometimes the most meaningful battles aren't the ones you win, but the ones that finally let you feel something real, even if that feeling is loss. The animation team absolutely nailed this understanding. In Boros' final moments, his design becomes almost ethereal, his body breaking down into particles of light. It's not just beautiful animation, it's visual storytelling at its finest. The powerful alien warrior, who arrived in imposing armor, ends his journey almost human-like, vulnerable, and strangely at peace. What makes Boros' end so impactful is how it changes our understanding of strength in the One Punch Man universe. Here's a being who spent his entire existence being too powerful, only to find meaning in finally meeting someone even stronger. It flips the typical shonen anime power fantasy on its head. Sometimes being the strongest isn't a blessing, it's a burden. And true satisfaction might come from finally being able to lose. Looking back at Boros' story, it's clear why he resonates with so many fans. In his quest for a worthy opponent, in his loneliness at the top, and in his graceful acceptance of defeat, he showed us something profound about power and purpose. Maybe the real strength isn't in being unbeatable, but in finding peace with your own limitations, even if it takes crossing the universe to discover them.